going to show how to make this chainmail effect using Affinity Photo's procedural texture filter. To make this effect, I'm going to use two overlapping grids, and in each grid I'll put a ring in it. I use the maximum function to make one ring appear higher than the other. I'm going to apply an offset to each of these to make them appear like they're tilted. This one, the top part is tilted towards you, and then on this other ring, the bottom part of it is tilted towards you. I'll also use an alpha channel so that you can see a background underneath it. To get started, I'll start with a new document. I'll set it to 1024 by 1024 pixels. Make sure it's in RGB mode and create that. I'll fill it with black and add a new live procedural texture filter. We're going to start with a single equation. I'll assign it to all three channels. I'll add a single real value input. I'll call that scale and bring that up to about 6. Then I'm going to start with a coordinate system. VAR V equals vec2 of relative x and relative y. So I'm using relative coordinates, so I'll be able to move it around. And then times a, my scaling factor, divided by h, which is the height of the document in pixels. So that looks like that. It's a vector, and it's assigned the x component to the red channel and the y component to the green channel. Next, I'm going to set up a coordinate array, so it's a repeating pattern. I'll call that VAR V1 equals fraction of V. Like that. So here you can see I have the repeating array, and I'm just going to drag this over until I can't see up here where there are negative numbers. Next, I want to move the origin of each of these cells to the center of the cell. To do that, all I have to do is subtract 0.5. This is a vector operation, so it subtracts 0.5 from both x and the y components. Now my origin is positioned at the center of the cell. Now I want to set up another coordinate array, and this one's going to be offset by half a unit from the other one. I think I'll bring this down to 4 so I can see it better. I'll just copy this and add a semicolon and paste it over here, and I'll change the name of this one to V2. And in this case, in order to shift it over by half unit, I'm going to subtract 0.5 from the V up here. So you can see it shifted over like that, and so now I have two coordinate systems, and they're all shifted over by half a unit. Now I'm going to do the circle shape, so that's going to be my ring for my ring mail or chain mail, and so that is just going to be a length of V1 like that. It gives me sort of a circle shape, so length gives me a circle, and I'm going to set up some sliders over here for that. So I want a 0 to 1 slider for the diameter of this, and then I want a 0 to 1 slider for the thickness of my ring. So I'll call this one D for diameter and this one T for thickness. So if you look at the ring shape I'm trying to create, it has a torus, and a torus has major diameter and minor diameter. The D value is going to be the major diameter, and then T is going to sort of represent the minor diameter. In order to get a ring shape of this, I'm going to apply a smooth step to it. This one will be the type of smooth step that has 4 different inputs. And so it tells you how long you hold it at 0, and then when you move from 0 and how long it takes to get up to 1, and then how long it takes to get from 1 down to 0 again, and then how long you keep it at 0 before you're done. So this one's going to start increasing at the value of D, and then at D plus T over 2, I'm going to have it reach a value of 1, and then at d plus t over 2, same point, we're going to have it start coming down again, and then it'll finally bottom out at d plus t. Comment there, and this one, I got my d and t, so this is going to be my diameter. This is going to be my thickness. So now when I bring this down, okay, there are my little circles, and I can bring this down. There's my thickness. So this one is controlling the thickness of it. This one controls the diameter of the circle. So there's my array of circles, and that looks good. So I'm going to set this up as a variable. So I'm going to add the word variable, and then I'll call this one T1 equals all of that. And I'm going to make a copy of this whole thing. The Control C, add a semicolon, Control V, and I'll change this to a 2, and I have to change my V1 to a V2. And that's the other set of rings. And now just take the max of T1 comma T2, like that. And that shows my rings overlapping. If I make the circles too large, I'll start running into this edge here. So they really only work when you get to about one side. So now they're sort of all overlapping, but not one of them is above the other one. So I need to introduce something that looks like a slope to this. So I'm going to just take off my max. I'm going to just look at T1 for now. So I want this to appear sloped, so this edge, or one edge, is higher than the other edge. In order to do that, I'm going to multiply my T1 variable over here by the y of the coordinate system. So I'll just multiply by v1 dot y. And you can see that because y goes negative, this area is completely black. So I don't want it quite like that. I want to add an offset to that, and it turns out about 0.5 is a good offset. So I'm going to put parentheses around this and add a plus 0.5 to this one. And let's look at that. There, so that one is nice and dark. This one is nice and light. So that's what I want for my ring pattern. Now the other one I want to tilt the other way. So the other one I want this to be light and that to be dark. So let's do that. I'm going to go in here and I'll multiply my T2 variable function by minus v2 dot y plus 0.5. And then I'm going to go back and change this again. I'll put in max T1 comma T2. Now I have my overlapping ring pattern, and it's not perfect, and no matter how much I tweaked this, I wasn't able to get it to be perfect. They sort of look like they're sort of welded together at this point, but it looks pretty good for the general effect. I want to be able to see through to the underlying layer so that I can put a different pattern behind it. In order to do that, I'm going to create a new equation, and I'm going to copy this one and assign it here, and then I'm going to add another variable, and I'll just call that one E for the edge. Now with this equation in here assigned to alpha, it looks all faded out, and really I only want the gaps in the middle to be transparent. So what I'm going to do is to apply a smooth step to this, and it's going to go from 0 to E. Close that with the parentheses, and then I can bring my E down until it's only affecting the gap in the middle. Next I'm going to add a pixel layer for the background. I'm going to drag it down below this layer, and I'll fill it with black. So you can see I have my background and then the chainmail up front. Next I'm going to add some color with a gradient map. So I'll go down here, select gradient map, and I'll just choose the default map. I'll set the first color to black. I'll set the top color over here to white, or nearly white. I'm going to make this, bring the saturation down a little, and then move this over so it's sort of a steely blue color. It'll just be a highlight. And then for the body of this, I'm going to make it a very dark reddish color. So try to make it look a little bit like an orange. I'll take the saturation out of it though. And I'll maybe add another one over here. Make that a little darker, but a little more saturated. Something like that. Now this is a little bit too much highlight on there, so I'm going to drag this over a ways, lighten that up a little, and then add desaturate it a little bit more so it looks not quite so orange. There's a basic sort of rusty or worn chainmail. I'm going to drag that on top of here, and I'm just going to do another one. I'll turn this off, and I'm going to do a gold effect. So I'm going to add another gradient map, and this one I'm going to make start off the same way, black and nearly white. For this one I'm going to make it just a little bit yellow, just a tiny amount of yellow in there. And then this one I'm going to make sort of a nice gold. So there's sort of a basic gold you could go with, and then to really make it look really shiny, you add a bunch more of these points on here, and some of them, this one, I'll make a lot darker, so it gives that little ring there. It gives it a little additional ridge, and then some of them make it a little lighter, so then it gives another ridge like that. Just keep doing that until you have a variety of different colors across the whole thing. And drag this one over here. The next thing I want to do is to look at the shape of this smooth step function. So I know there's several different varieties of smooth step with different interpolation methods, and I think there's one that will work better than the one I'm using. But to show that, I'm going to create a new equation and turn off the colors on these and turn them on down here. And then for this one, I'm just going to start with x over h, and I'm going to turn off the color also. So now I have a value that's going from 0 to 1, and I can see in the scope over here that it's a linear function. And now I'm going to take a smooth step of that, and in this case I'll just do 0, 0.5, 0.5, 1. So it'll go from 0, and then when it hits 0.5, halfway across the screen, it'll go up to 1, and then starting at 1, it'll go down to 0 again by the time it gets to 1. Okay, so that's what that looks like. It looks like a fairly smooth transition, but I want my chainmail to be more rounded at the top, not quite so pointed, and not rounded on the bottom like this. In order to do that, I'm going to change this to the CS. So that sort of has the circular sections. Each part is a quarter of a circle as it's joined together. So that looks like that. And I think that will make a more rounded looking chainmail than the other one. So I'm going to change all of my smooth steps to smooth step CS. Put these back to what they were, and I'll change every one of these to a CS. So I have two of them in the first equation, and then 3 in the second. Okay, and to me it just looks so much nicer. It looks more rounded, smoother, glowing sort of. So I like that a lot better. I'd love to hear about things that you've created using procedural textures. If you've done something that's really cool, please put a comment in the comments for this video or any of my videos. I like to find out what other people are doing with this stuff. And also, let me know if you have any comments or questions about this video. And thanks for watching.